podcast presented by FingerLakes1.com. I'm Josh Durso, joined as always by my co-host Jackie Augustine. This week, we're talking about some breaking news regarding the health of New York's local bridges, law enforcement accountability, what's known as the LLC loophole, and an affordable housing project in Trumansburg. Wow, we've got a lot to talk about.
Yes, it's wide-ranging.
Tell me about it. So how have things been in your world? Busy, not busy, exciting? Anything in the news catch you and say, "Ooh, that's fun"?
Well, the stuff we're going to be talking about, yes.
Right.
But yeah, it's been busy and good busy.
Right. So let's start off with this report, which from the New York State Comptroller's office, Tom DiNapoli, released yesterday. Seneca County, so I'm going to kind of hit New York State as a whole.
Okay. Is
really doing poorly, obviously. That's no secret. I feel like every year there's been some sort of report pointing out how terrible our infrastructure is. But here are some of the highlights. Seneca and Cayuga counties ranked dead last or highest in New York State for percentage of structurally deficient bridges. I believe Seneca County was in the 34% range, and Cayuga County was right behind in the 27% range. And then there was a steep fall off where most other counties were in like the mid-teens.
Right.
Ontario County, shout out to Ontario County for dead last, had the smallest
Which
percentage
is first
of bridges. Yeah, first or last, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
I believe they were around 2%.
2.1.
2.1%.
Yep.
So the interesting thing was in the Niagara Gazette story, which came out the day before the full report was released. DiNapoli kind of pointed to water and sewer infrastructure as well as the bridges, which I thought was really interesting given the timing here in Seneca County, where the supervisors are actually looking at multiple DEC infractions on sewer, and now they're looking at maybe expanding municipal service for water and sewer into the southern end of the county where it doesn't exist right now. What were some of your big takeaways from this study or the report itself? Obviously, nothing earth-shatteringly surprising in it, but
yeah, except the numbers. I mean, I'm
glad.
Yeah, I'm glad that this kind of comprehensive look. I've got the report pulled up on my screen. I think is really helpful because sometimes these kind of public works discussions happen just on a local level or just on a county level. So I think it's good to have the state actually saying, here is what's going on, here's how it looks comparatively, because a lot of times local governments don't have quick access to that kind of benchmarking. So it is good for Ontario County to be able to say, well, we're not as bad off as Seneca County, no offense, Seneca, but then when you get deeper into the numbers and they kind of aggregate it out by region, these economic development regions, the Finger Lakes now, they're saying they expect it's about a $500+ million investment that needs to be made in these bridges. And I look at that and I think, well, infrastructure is economic development, and I think good infrastructure is important. I'm more excited about water, sewer upgrades, and bridge reconstruction than I am about road projects, because I think, the more we keep investing in roads, the more we keep reducing our attention to other forms of transportation that might in the long run be more cost effective and more efficient for people. But I'm just glad that New York State, the state government, took a look at this and gave people something to work with.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess kind of I don't want to say it's eye-popping, but kind of the takeaway I have from this and from any kind of infrastructure-related story, especially when you start talking about water and sewer. I look in parts of Seneca County is a perfect example, but other rural counties across New York State, and the fact that it's 2017 and there are a number of places that have no municipal water or sewer service is, I don't want to say disheartening, but kind of sad. We've come so far and we've spent historically so much money in creating these great systems, and we have great research teams and people that are looking for new and exciting ways to make all of these services possible. But the fact that, in addition to just not investing enough to fix things and keep things functional as they are now, we also aren't investing properly in the future, in the places where it doesn't exist. So I guess that's kind of a big concern to me with something like this.
Yeah. And I think, it dovetails not just in an economic sense, but also environmentally. Around here in the Finger Lakes region, I mean, people relying on septic systems is a threat to the watershed. So the more that you can expand sewer systems in a way that, diverts waste to a place where it can be appropriately treated, I think that also has to be a factor. Because putting in the past, there was talk about the city of Geneva expanding their sewer districts, and the idea, sometimes I found myself saying that's a bad idea because that will incentivize certain types of development, which will then have a competitive advantage because of tax jurisdiction outside of the city over attracting investment in the city proper. But I think, again, you have to look at it from this myriad perspective of, what actually advances the region's best interest as a whole. And I agree that investment in infrastructure not only puts people to work on meaningful projects, but also, helps everybody out.
Well, and it also, I think, a really important arm of this to mention is using Seneca County as an example. Now there is, over the last, say, month and a half, because of some of those DEC infractions, there has become this discussion around, okay, we need to bring water and sewer. We need to bring these municipal services to the southern end of the county. But historically, that has been a really difficult conversation to have because geography plays into it. North versus south. Right. You have people serving for certain interests, and they, these dollars that are coming, that are spent every year on projects like these, they're few and far between. So they're scratching and clawing for every dollar they can possibly get for their own district. And I think there needs to be more of this above board, everybody looking at the county as a whole rather than looking at their neck of the woods only.
Yes, you're exactly right. And I think if there is ever an argument to be made for shared services or for regional public works oversight, it's particularly in water and sewer. The idea that we let individual municipalities make decisions about water and sewer which affect a region and affect watersheds doesn't make any sense to me. There should absolutely be, I'm sure people don't like this. I would love if New York State came out and said, guess what? You want this money? You have to actually form, a county-wide sewer district, a county-wide water district that's independently, overseen. Because allowing individual localities to try to work it out, you're right. They're fighting for limited funds and they're duplicating effort.
Well, and the funny part kind of seems to be that there is, even elected officials, it seems there has been a change in the way this type of issue is looked at, because I think most elected officials as well realize that individual municipalities shouldn't be in the water or sewer business, period. That said, it's I think one of the big perception issues with something like this is selling this type of work, this type of project. So there isn't really, so say Seneca County decides tomorrow that they're going to jump on board with a giant water sewer project that will mean every resident in Seneca County will be covered. You're talking about a 10-year project.
Right. Yep.
And you're talking about something that won't have tangible benefits, either economic or, physical use for a very long time, years. Selling that to, supervisors who are working off of 2 and 4 year terms, the politics of it starts to become difficult. My question to you, I guess, is kind of wrapping up around this whole bridge conversation. Do you ever think about the health of our bridges when you're driving over them? I drive over 4 bridges coming into work, 4 bridges leaving. Do you ever think about it?
The one I think about the most is the 5 and 20 bridge that it's actually part of South Main Street in Geneva, and it's the 5 and 20 overpass, right? As you're either coming up along the lake headed toward Wegmans, or coming from Wegmans, and when you can start to see the lake. And that bridge has always been on my mind. But no, I think it is one of those things that otherwise you tend to overlook because you assume somebody keeps track of them, but you aren't entirely sure who does it.
Right.
And it's supposed to be State Department of Transportation in most cases. However, as this shows, the local effort that's required to actually fix them is pretty substantial. So at some level, individual municipalities are making decisions about what to do about their own bridges, and we see where that leaves us.
Yeah.
So.
Now, I will say one of the frequent comments that I was seeing regarding this story after we published it yesterday was, well, what bridges? That data was not part of what was initially released by the Comptroller's office, at least not that we could find. That data will, I'm sure, turn up as individual counties have to start, taking that data and doing something with it. If they're going to do something.
Yeah, but I mean, in Seneca County, it's 9 of 26 bridges that were determined to be deficient. So, I mean, it's a pretty good guess. You've got a 1/3 chance when you're on a bridge that it's that one.
Yeah,
So.
Of course. So